As we have discussed, setting up a machine is hard work. There's a great deal to consider when it comes to choosing the machine, and even after you get it and you've been successful in installing the operating system and all of your hardware works with the with the operating system, there's still quite a bit to do. The next thing you'd want to do, and many of you who have installed a machine recently must have experienced this, right after you're done doing the installation, for the next hour or so, your machine is just getting up to date, installing patches. After that, if you do some computational work, you'd have to install all of the dependencies, and these can be numerous. So installing runtimes, doing the configuration for languages that you might use, installing packages, configuring all of these to recognize each other, setting paths in your environment, and on and on and on. Now, if you're touching anything having to do with data, which is a lot today, you'd have to do the same thing for that environment. Installations, setups, configurations. You'd have to create users. You'd have to give some of the packages that were using your data stores access and privileges so that they could do so. This continues if you're using, in addition to that, application servers, and pretty much everything has a small server today that runs in a networked environment, you'd have to do that yet once again. And so when it comes to configuring your machine and putting in everything you need to be able to perform your work, there's a great deal that needs to be done. In the old days, as we have mentioned, this could take well over a month. A lot of that had to do with tracking down certain hardware specifications so you could specify the software so that it could be recognized. This was quite arduous. But even if you think about the most vanilla use today of your machine, whenever you had to do that reinstallation, typically it would have taken you half a day. But then getting all those additional applications that you sometimes use, but you've forgotten that you need to install, it takes some time. And so on average, it takes you about a week to get back to the initial state before you had to do a wipe clean or before you had a clean machine. So this obviously can be quite frustrating, and it certainly hurts our productivity. And it's something we'd like to get away from. And so the first idea that was put forward was that of a virtual machine, a mechanism through which you could put another machine on top of the machine that you're working on. And this has turned out to be very helpful. We use it in education to be able to cover different configurations for different operating systems. So if we want to illustrate how to use a tool, we can do it on several different operating systems without having to have other machines. We can do that installation within our own environment. People who work within quality assurance, within testing in the software industry do the same. They have multiple versions of multiple operating systems, and not only of multiple operating systems, but also different versions of the same operating system. So ultimately having a rich environment in which to test your software to make sure that it is working as you think it is. Also, when you're doing trainings within an academic environment, instead of making sure that everybody can replicate the environment that you're describing to them, it's sometimes easier to just hand them a virtual machine. Now, some of the constraints of that are the weight and the size. These can be quite big. Some of the recent ones that I've done for coursework can be well over 50 gigabytes, and though that's certainly not a light configuration. So even if you have a virtual machine, as you can see here in your first layer, you still have to go through all of the rest. You have to put in your OS, you have to patch, you have to do everything that you had to do before. So it can be still quite lengthy. However, you do have the option of running multiple in the same environment. So one of the advantages that has emerged as this capability became mainstream was that there were groups that could create these predefined images that had everything you needed. And so instead of you having to build everything from scratch every time, there were a number of those that were available for you and that you could install in 5 minutes. And so the advantage of this is that you can be a lot more productive in a lot shorter time, and that you can try and experiment multiple environments without having to go through that really painful process of building up from scratch. And here I'm showing you a number of the images that are available. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create one of these yourself in one of the cloud vendors. In this case, I'm going to use DigitalOcean simply because of its simplicity. As you can see here, I am now at DigitalOcean site. I'm looking at the interface. Maybe I should make my screen a little bit bigger. Let's see if it's friendly, and it does so in a nice way. It looks like it does. I'm then going to go ahead and create a droplet, which is the convention that's used within this environment to denote a new machine, a new virtual machine. And as you can see here, I could go to the marketplace and choose from many of the pre-configured virtual machines that are available. All of these happen to be open source, so it's a great amount of resources that you could use for building products. But in this case, I'm going to create a simple, clean machine that I often use for testing scenarios. And so I'm going to go with the vanilla Ubuntu. As you can see here, I could start off at $40 a month. But for many experiments, really, a $5 machine will do just right. And this is for an entire month. So that means that if you only use it for an hour, as you can see there, it's not even 1 cent. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my region. You should always choose that which is closest to you. And the last thing here is to choose my keys. This is the way in which we configure the access. And you can see that I have keys for many of my collaborators. And the last thing would be to give it a name. And I'm simply going to call it Demo01. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my droplet. So as you can see there, in under a minute, I can go ahead and specify a brand new machine, and you can see there that machine being created. In a minute or so, sometimes it takes less, I should be able to get a notification that the machine has been created. And you can see there that took probably 30 seconds, and I have an IP that I can use and I can connect to directly. So I could surface this on the World Wide Web as a server for collaboration. I could give others access to my machine, or I could simply run my short experiment and throw away the machine, which I'm going to do here in a moment because I'm simply doing it for demonstration. And you can see here that I'm going to destroy it, and this droplet has been destroyed. So it's very easy to create new resources. It's very easy to dispose of them. And that gives us a great deal of agility. Now, what I've just demonstrated to you within DigitalOcean is available from all the cloud vendors. Google's Cloud Compute has it, Azure has it. I'm showing you here the one from AWS, and there's a great deal of these machines that are pre-configured. The community provides them. Many of the cloud vendors have a curated set of them that is available. And so you can use them to certainly try new products, to experiment on small things, small prototypes. It's a great resource to use. Now, the other thing that I'll say as well is that you can, in fact, create these programmatically, and that gives you the so-called machine speed. That means that on demand, in response to some need that you have, you could programmatically create thousands of machines if you wanted to. And many companies do this. On demand, they spin up those capabilities. As the load drops, they simply destroy them. So I'm going to go ahead here and show you how to create one of these. And I'm going to go ahead and show you first my user interface just to show you that I don't have any machines, and then I will create them programmatically. As you can see here, I have a pretty clean screen. I simply have a test droplet that I have listed there. And now I'm going to pull in a terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and paste a command. And this command will be the following. You can see here it's a pretty messy to read, but you can see a name that I'm providing for the machine. There's also a region, there's a size, there's an authorization. I'm providing a token that I have defined on my environment, and then the type of data that I'm passing. So pretty much the same thing we did by hand. This is the location that we're posting this request to. But in short, it is essentially the same. These are just machine instructions, and I'm going to go ahead and hit return here. And as you can see, there's a pause and there's a notification that a new VM has been added. And because I did not do it through the UI, I have to do a refresh. But I'm going to go ahead and show you that, in fact, I could do multiple ones. So it is what I'm about to enter. It's very much the same. However, as you can see here, I have names. So I am creating more than one. And I should update this one here to be 3, because otherwise both of them are going to have the same name. And I'm going to make this change of screen just because I have already committed it there. I'm going to go ahead and clear, and I've entered it, and you can see here that I have 3. And just as I did before, I'm going to go ahead and enter this. And you can imagine that we could take this same approach to create thousands of them. So you can see there that new machines have been added. And if I reload this page, I should be able to see those machines being created. You can see here that the very first one was already created and the other 2 are on their way. So this is pretty easy to do. You can see the flexibility and the platform that the cloud vendors are providing and how easily this could be leveraged.